Laudato Si Action Platform team. It's a gift to be with you today. Before we begin, I'd love to invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Your name, where you're joining from, and the parish, diocese, school, or organization you're connected with. I'll give you a moment to write that. This is more than a webinar. It's an opportunity to learn and collaborate and seeing one another arrive. If you'd like to follow along in Spanish, Italian, French, or Portuguese, we've made space for you. Just click the interpretation button on your screen and choose the language you'd like. We are recording this session, and the recording will be posted next week in the Laudato Si Action platform dashboard. If you already have an account, you'll be able to access it there afterward next week. If you don't yet have an account on the Laudato Si Action platform, we do encourage you to enroll. You'll find the registration links below in a moment. And finally, we want this to feel like a circle of welcome. Please keep your comments in the chat kind and respectful. When you signed up for this webinar, you agreed to our etiquette guidelines, and we'll drop that link in the chat again in case you'd like to take another look. Thanks for helping us make this a space of care and connection. And one more thing, if a question comes to you during our time together, you don't need to wait. You can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and send it at any point. We'll try to gather as many as we can before we close. Just a reminder, questions in the regular chat can easily get lost in the flow, so please do use that Q&A space for anything you'd like us to hold to and respond to. Now that we have some of our housekeeping out of the way, before we turn to our speakers, I'd like to situate our time together. Today's theme is Start the Year Strong, Forming Your Plan for 2026. But this is more about planning activities. It's about regrounding our work in the spiritual and educational foundations of Laudato Si, learning from the key insights and patterns we saw in 2025, and discerning how we respond wisely to the changing context shaping 2026. One of those emerging contexts is the rapid expansion of artificial intelligence and digital technologies. But today is not about endorsing or condemning AI. It's about discernment. It's about asking, how do new technologies shape the way we see creation? How do they influence our educational practices? How do we remain communities of contemplation, conscious, and conversion in a digital age? This is a conversation that is still evolving in the church and society and within our own communities. And we're not here to offer final answers. We're here to think and pray and reflect together, because education, discernment, and ethical reflection are not side conversations in Laudato Si. They are central to integral ecology. So before we continue, I'm grateful to be led in prayer by Sister Marina Capra from the School Sisters of Notre Dame from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Sister Marinas has spent her life in education as a teacher, principal, and leader within the School Sisters of Notre Dame network, carrying out what she describes simply as the mission of God wherever I am. Her work bridges faith, formation, and justice, and she is a member of the religious advisory group of the Laudato Si Action platform. Though she cannot be with us live, she has generously recorded this prayer for our gathering. Let's allow this to recenter us in the Lenten season, not first as planners, but as disciples.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this moment of prayer in the opening of our webinar. And let us place our life, our world in the heart of our Creator and ask that the divine word Help us to become stronger, to care for life. And we pray, God of life, creator of heaven and earth, of all that lives and breathes, from every corner of the earth we gather before you today, with gratitude and reverence. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We receive this new year as a gift and as a responsibility entrusted to our hands. May your Spirit be present among us, which in the beginning hovered over the waters, and which in the time of the new creation in Jesus Christ filled the apostles with courage. Be present among us now, renewing our hope and guiding our steps on this common journey. You entrusted humanity with the care of the earth to cultivate and keep it. Grant us wisdom to educate, courage to transform, and humility to recognize that we are part of creation and not its owners. May your word be a light for our path, especially as we discern the actions of the year ahead. Help us to align our projects with justice, compassion, and the common good. Hear, O God, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Give us a sensitive heart, capable of responding with concrete gestures of care, solidarity, and the strengthening of communities. May we, as a global community of faith, walk together, renewing our minds and attitudes. Be signs of hope in a wounded world, but one still full of promise. We ask that our minds be opened to new ways of inhabiting this world. May learning through ecological education guide us to a true conversion of heart, leading us to contemplate the beauty and defend the dignity of every creature. Give us the strength to be communities of resilience and capacity building. In the face of climatic and social uncertainties, may we not encounter fear, but rather the courage to act collectively. Strengthen the most vulnerable, so that their voices and wisdom may guide our steps and renew our hopes. May our decisions echo the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. May our decisions promote life in abundance, peace among peoples, the establishment of just relationships, and loving care for our common home. We entrust everything to you with confidence and hope. Amen. May we have a very fruitful gathering today.
Amen. Now, I'd like to introduce someone many of you already know, and someone I have the privilege of working closely with, Alonso de Llanes, our program manager for the Laudato Si Action platform. Alonso has been walking with this project through its growth and evolution, and he brings a rare combination of strategic clarity and deep commitment to the church's ecological mission. He'll briefly share key insights from 2025, what we've learned, what's emerging across sectors, and why revisiting your dashboard and marking your progress really matters as we look toward 2026. Alonso, I'm grateful for your leadership. Over to you.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It is a joy to gather with you today as part of this global journey of ecological conversion through the Laudato Si Action platform. I will like to take just a few minutes to share where we are as a community. If you haven't seen our annual report, just go ahead. We warmly invite you to take a look. It's available on the platform website. And here you will find that the last year, more than 5,600 institutions and 5,700 families or individuals across 150 countries have continued walking together on this path of internal ecology. But beyond the numbers, what moved us most in 2025 was that we are seeing ecological conversion become concrete. Institutions and families are not making only commitments, they are implementing real measurable actions in their communities, parishes, schools, religious organizations. And this is a sign of maturity. The church is not only speaking about care for creation, it's actually living it. In this slide, we're going to see the next slide, please. We're going to see the top actions of 2025. When we analyze participant data, we identify the top 10 actions most frequently adopted in 2025. Many of them are simple. So you can see reducing food waste, recycling, composting, buying local food, saving energy. But taken together, they tell a powerful story that care for creation is becoming part of ordinary Catholic life. Ecological conversion is no longer something abstract. It's becoming a daily practice among the worldwide Catholic Church. And I want to close with an invitation for this year. If you're already part of the platform, take this as your encouragement to complete your steps, to mark your actions, submit your reflections and your plans. And if you are an institution, remember, if your institution completes these steps and you track your progress, you can receive a Laudato Si certificate, which is a recognition not of perfection, but of perseverance. If you're not participating yet, we warmly invite you to join this global journey. Together, step by step, we are shaping a new ecological culture in the church. Thank you for being part of the movement of hope. And back to you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Alonso. I just want to say that as we look ahead to 2026, what strikes me listening to you is that these aren't just updates, they're signs of implementation. I know something we often discuss in our meetings behind the scenes is that ecological conversion isn't measured by inspiration alone. It shows up in habits, in budgets, in procurement decisions. It's what gets composted and what gets purchased. And that shift from saying we care to being able to say this is what we did feels like a quiet maturity for those involved in the platform. So thank you for sharing. I think there's a question quietly emerging beneath all of this. How do we deepen what we've already begun? And I think the context around us is shaping and shifting so quickly, technologically, socially, culturally. So that brings us to our next speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Ivan Ephraim Egosam. He teaches at the Pontifical and Royal University of Santo Tomas in Manila, the oldest existing university in Asia, founded in 1611. This is a place where faith and reason have been in conversation for centuries. There, he serves as a faculty member and research associate, and he is currently completing his doctorate in philosophy with a focus in theology. His work ranges widely from Thomas Aquinas and Gabriel Marcel to medical humanities and artificial intelligence. But what connects it all is a concern for the human person, how we think, how we form conscious. He joins us today not to offer definitive answers, but to help us reflect more deeply in 2026, and perhaps more honestly about how integral ecology is unfolding in a digital age. So today is about discernment, about asking, are we forming persons or simply training users? Are we building communities of wisdom or systems of efficiency? Ivan, thank you for helping us reflect more deeply on these questions. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steven. Let me just share my screen. Okay, I hope everyone can see it already. Okay. Good morning to those in Vancouver or in New York. Good afternoon those in London and Nairobi. And good evening to those in New Delhi. I was looking at the time slots in the registration form. Magandang gabi po sa mga kaibigan natin sa Manila. Very special good early morning to those in Sydney. And of course, buon pomeriggio aroma to our friends in Rome. A special greeting to the heart of our global church. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Maureen, Alonso, Steven, the LSAP, and the organizers of this event, Laudato Si Movement. And the topic that they gave me is to talk about AI and its effects to environment, education, and how integral ecology plays a role in this. And this is a great honor and opportunity to share these insights that I have been reflecting on for the past 3 years since AI has been a pressing issue, and even Pope Leo himself brought it up to our light. So let me begin with this quotation from Pope Leo XIV in his message to the participants of the Conference on Artificial Intelligence in the Common Home last December 2025. He states, human beings are called to be co-workers in the work of creation, not merely passive consumers of content generated by AI. Our dignity lies in our ability to reflect, choose freely, love unconditionally, enter into authentic relationship with others. AI has certainly opened up new horizons for creativity, but it also raises serious concerns about its possible repercussions on humanity's openness to truth and beauty and capacity for wonder and contemplation. Recognizing and safeguarding what characterizes the human person and guarantees his or her balanced growth is essential for establishing an adequate framework for managing the consequences of artificial intelligence. End of quote. And with this, the Holy Father invites us to carefully support the freedom and inner life of young people so that talents will be developed, meaning will be discerned, and confront the deeper questions of existence rather than simply consuming information with the age that we are right now, no, in the digital age. And we hope to guide these people through the lens of integral ecology to use technology intelligently and ethically fosters maturity and responsibility in the broader horizon so that we can really harness AI for the common good. So here, it's really the Holy Father is really talking about the shared commitments from politics, institutions, businesses, education, and communities to place this responsibility above profit, above a technocratic paradigm. And when I realized with this message is that AI is not first a technical problem to solve, but it is a reality to be it's a reality to be spiritually interpreted, both in the grace-filled possibilities and its ambiguous, even dangerous consequences. As we know, it is truly relevant today and must be looked carefully as it can affect the way humans are formed and humans interact with one another. So our reflection today follows this deeply Ignatian perspective, no? Since we go back to the Jesuit influence on Pope Francis in Laudato Si, instead of our usual see, judge, act framework, I want to present it through contemplatio, examine, conversio, and actio. We begin with contemplatio ad amorem, not with problems, but with gift, with the reality that creation remains, first of all, an expression of the love of God, a word given before it is managed, a home received before it is repaired. From this contemplation, we move later on into the examen, where we are invited to see truthfully not only the environmental crisis, but also our own participation in it. So individually, through our lifestyles, and communally, through our social, economic, and technological systems, we hope to have an honest awareness that is not meant to produce guilt, but clarity, so that we may have a clearer version of where we stand before God, before creation, and before one another. From this clarity, I hope to tackle in conversion, ecological conversion, where God allows grace and invites us to touch and transform us from within. And this is the heart of integral ecology. As we know, it's not merely changing behaviors, but reshaping desires, habits, and imaginations. Because so that our care for common home becomes a spiritual orientation, not just a moral obligation. And finally, this leads us to Actio, working together in concerted and discerned effort to respond to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. This path is not different from the familiar method of the pastoral cycle of see, discern, act, but it is more in a spiritual deepening to remind us that before we act, we must first learn how to see, and before we change the world, we must first allow God to change us. And I saw this when I was reading Laudato Si and Laudato Deum, that this is what Francis was trying to talk to us, or what he was trying to remind all of us, to see it from within at first. Okay, so for the first part, contemplatio, creation as gift in a digital world, uh, let me begin that not with the problem, not with the crisis, and not even with statistics, because I think that is not what Ignatius is trying to teach us. But we begin with contemplatio ad amorem, contemplation in view of love. So we begin with a very simple and very profound truth. God creates, God gives, and God dwells in all things. Before creation is something to be fixed, managed, or even protected, it is first a gift that precedes us, a gift that sustains us, and a gift that does not belong to us. Or to say it more simply, the world is not first a project, it is first a present. And yet today, we contemplate this gift in a very new way. We no longer look only with our eyes. We look with satellites, with sensors, with algorithms, with artificial intelligence. In fact, some of us probably know more about the Amazon rainforest from Google Earth than from actually being in a forest, not in the Amazon, or just in a forest in their own country. We have seen glaciers melting. Personally, I've seen glaciers melting in 4K resolution. Of course, there are no glaciers in the Philippines, so I just I was just able to watch virtually. So we track typhoons today in real time through applications. We monitor the deforestation by the hour, and we can map biodiversity from space. And it's quite ordinary, but AI today allows us to see these things, to see climate patterns. So this is the potential of AI, right? In our mission to protect the common home, to see climate patterns, to predict disasters, to monitor ecosystems, or even expand access to ecological education. And in this sense, AI truly become, if you look at it, a new instrument of ecological awareness and global solidarity. It seems like technology helps us see creation more clearly. It gives us new eyes, a new scales of vision, and some new forms of knowledge. And for me, this is not a small thing because for the first time in human history, humanity can see the planet as a whole. It is as one fragile, interconnected home. And from a theological perspective, that is almost mystical. But here comes the Ignatian but, no? Contemplation is never innocent. It always involves discernment. And because even at the level of contemplation, AI is ambiguous. We risk replacing wonder with data. We risk replacing presence with simulation. And we risk replacing wisdom with prediction. And let me give a small example because a few months ago, I visited the beautiful beach here in our country because of I want to be tan. And before even touching the water, I took out my phone. No? I was with my family, with my wife, and I opened Google and searched, is this beach safe? Are there jellyfish? Or is what's the water quality? What's UV index? And AI, Google Gemini can give it quickly to us. And only after 5 minutes of researching did I finally look up and realize the sun was already setting. We were too much focused on on using AI, using technology, and using my phone. And I had perfect information, but I almost missed the experience. And this is our digital temptation today. We know more, but we feel less. We predict more, but we contemplate less. And creation slowly becomes a data set, a resource, an object of control, not something we receive. It becomes something we manage. So here we ask ourselves a very uncomfortable question. What are these questions? Do our technologies deepen our relevance, or do they our slowly dull our capacity for awe? Do they bring us closer to the mystery, or do they give us the illusion that the mystery is already solved? Because integral ecology reminds us that creation is not merely informational. Creation is relational. It is sacramental. And the world is not just something we analyze, it is something we encounter. As Francis always highlighted, a culture of encounter, something we listen to, something we receive as gift. And AI, therefore, must remain a window to creation, not a veil over it. It must be a tool that leads us to deeper wonder and not a screen that replaces wonder. Or to say it playfully, AI is very good at telling us how many trees are left, but only contemplation can teach us how to love a tree. And without love, no amount of data will ever save the forest. So our first ecological task is not action, not planning, not strategy. Our first task is learning how to see again. To see creation not as a problem to solve, but as a gift to receive. So now I move in the second part, the examine part, our participation in this crisis. Because after contemplation, it always leads back to something little more uncomfortable, the examine. Because it is one thing to admire creation. It is another thing to ask honestly, what is my relationship with it? So the examine today is no longer only ecological. It is also deeply digital. We still ask the classic questions, right? In examine, how do I consume? How do I pollute? We ask this. But now we must also ask, how do I use technology? How much energy sustains my digital life? And what invisible systems support my everyday convenience? Because, for example, a very simple confession, no? I often feel guilty when I use too much plastic. I think this is normal for many, but I almost never feel guilty when I watch 5 hours of videos on my phone, when I am scrolling on TikTok, or when I am binge watching in Netflix. Because one plastic bottle, we feel bad, but 5 hours of streaming, cloud storage that we acquire for our iPhones, AI tools and data, we feel nothing because we feel it's invisible. And that is precisely the problem. because AI systems rely on massive data centers, enormous electricity use, huge amounts of water for cooling, and rare earth mining. And we are here growing electronic waste. So here is a strange modern truth. What is this strange modern truth? Our digital lives may look clean and weightless, but they are very heavy for the planet. The ecological crisis now includes not only what we throw away, but also what we upload. Not only what we burn, but also what we click. And this is the first movement of the ecological digital examine, to realize that our digital lifestyles have real ecological footprints, even if we never see them. Then, examine then brings us now into education. Here, the picture becomes even more interesting and complex because AI in education is truly a gift in many ways. Our research states that there it can be used for personalized learning, access for marginalized students, a global knowledge at our fingertips, just one click away, ecological education through simulations and models. And a student in a remote village can now access the same resources as a student in a major university through these digital platforms. And that is not small. That is genuinely hopeful. But again, it's important to ask here that we discern and do not just romanticize on the efforts and possible and the good effects of technology. We need to discern as well on its effects on us because there are also risks. There's dependency on automation. There's an erosion of critical thinking. We rely many students today, especially if there are teachers here, you're more happy if the student makes mistakes in an essay because it shows that they're not dependent on AI, on Chat GPT. And knowledge becomes a product now. And students become data profiles, and classrooms are becoming surveillance spaces. Or to say it simply, some students no longer ask today, how do I understand something? Some students ask because of AI, which applications or which apps understand this for me? So the education examine ask a very deep question. Are we forming persons or are we just producing users? Are we educating conscience? Are we educating judgment, responsibility, imagination? Or are we simply training people to operate increasingly intelligent systems? And this is not just a pedagogical question, it is an anthropological one. And finally, our examine expands from the personal and educational to the structural because AI is not neutral. AI is not neutral because it reflects economic interests, corporate power, geopolitical questions. And behind the language of innovation, efficiency, and progress, we often find here the questions that we will ask as or as movers of Laudato Si: environmental injustice, digital colonialism, the extractive economic models that are happening, and communities bearing the cost of technologies they barely use because of the footprints of artificial intelligence. And the minerals here are mined in one place. The energy is consumed in another. The profits go somewhere else entirely, of course, and suddenly we realize something quite sobering. What is this? We realize that the ecological crisis and the digital crisis are not two separate problems. They are two expressions of the same technocratic paradigm that Francis uh, told us 11 years ago in 2015 in Laudato Si. It's a way of relating to the world that prioritizes control over care, a way of reflecting if it is efficiency over dignity, optimization over wisdom. And this is the deepest meaning of see and see, discern, act in this examine. We're not just observing what is happening out there, but we are recognizing ourselves within it. And the examine doesn't ask who is to blame, but when we reflect here, we ask ourselves, where am I located in these stories? What desires shape my choices? What systems do I benefit from? And what kind of world am I quietly helping to build? And only when we see ourselves truthfully, when we examine this on the digital age, can conversion really begin. So for the conversion, we hope to have an ecological and digital conversion. Because after contemplation examine, this is the most difficult step, conversion. Not strategies, not policies, not even action yet, but something much more demanding. It is an interior transformation. This is the challenging part for all of us. Thus, at the very heart of Let Thou to See, integral ecology must be holistic and touches what is far more important in our lives. It is because an ecological conversion involves a love for all that God has created and our responsibility as stewards of creation. Because we can analyze the crisis perfectly and still live exactly the same way. Ecological conversion today must go deeper than recycling bins and solar panels. It now includes our digital habits, our technological desires, our economic imagination. In other words, not only what we do, but what we want. And let me give you a simple example. Many of us say we want a more sustainable world, right? But when a website takes more than 3 seconds to load, we feel personally offended. We get angry. 3 seconds, suddenly patience disappears and sustainability becomes optional. And this is not just a technical issue with this attitude, it is a spiritual one. Because conversion asks us uncomfortable questions. Can we desire limits instead of limitless growth? Can we prefer wisdom over speed? Can we accept that not everything needs to be optimized, automated, or accelerated? Because integral ecology reminds us the deepest ecological problem is not carbon, it is desire. What kind of world do we long for? What kind of future do we imagine as progress? Or what kind of life do we secretly consider successful? And here's where AI becomes a spiritual mirror because AI reflects our desires back to us at scale. If we desire control, we build systems of surveillance. Profit, we build systems of extraction. Efficiency, we build systems that replace people. But if we desire care, we design for support. Solidarity, we design for inclusion. Wisdom, so we design for human flourishing. So yes, even AI must undergo conversion, and this is not in a technical sense, but in a moral and spiritual sense. And AI needs conversion from profit to common good, from control to service, from efficiency to solidarity, or to simply say, it's not just asking what can we do, but what should we become. And this is where education becomes absolutely central because conversion does not happen through software updates, it happens through formation. And education today can not only be about skills, competence, and systems, but it must become the primary source of digital ecological conversion. Not teaching people how to use AI, but what we must teach is how to live humanly with AI. So we must teach each other today how to think critically, discern ethically, to resist manipulation, care for creation, and remain free in a world of intelligent machines. Or as I sometimes say to my students, it's not enough that your devices are smart. The real question is, are you still becoming wise with those smart gadgets? And this is the heart of conversion. It's not becoming anti-technology or romanticizing the past, but it's about reordering our lives to see more than information, but have better desire that chooses sufficiency over success, relationship, and meaning over mere performance. Because only this kind of conversion can sustain us when solutions are slow, when systems resist change, when results are not immediate. Because without conversion, ecological action becomes burnout, frustration, or ideology. But with conversion, action becomes a vocation, a hope, and a mission. Integral ecology in the end is not just about saving the planet, it's about healing our way of being human in a technological world. And that healing always begins not in algorithms, not in policies, not in institutions, but in the quiet, difficult, grace filled work of the conversion of heart. So for the last part, Actio, communal mission is an ecological digital world. And this is where many people think, finally we do something. But it's important to reflect as well that when we're doing something, we do something differently. And because Ignatian spirituality is never rush, it's not impulsive, it's not anxious activism. So here, Actio is a mission born from discernment. Action is not just doing more. It is doing together and doing in a way that flows from transformed hearts. And that's why integral ecology tells us that this action is always communal and no one saves the planet alone. We know all that. Not even with very good intentions and certainly not with a very good app. We need each other in this part. And action today includes very concrete things to sustainable institutional practices, ethical AI governance, ecological education programs, digital sobriety, community-based learning. But the keyword here is not programs. The keyword are communities. And LSAP, for example, is not just this platform that we have. It's not building a network of projects. It is forming a network of discerning communities. We hope that our communities that we raise become communities of places of shared reflection. They become laboratories of ethical technology and witnesses of alternative futures. In other words, sub-communities are meant to become small ecological cultures inside a much larger technocratic world. And that is already a form of prophecy because let me offer an image. Many years ago, when we first tried to live more sustainably and had this conversation with our parish pastoral committee here in the parish in the Philippines, we started with some very dramatic resolutions. No plastic, no waste, no unnecessary consumption. But after 3 days, some were exhausted. After 5 days, some were hungry. After 1 week, some were quietly ordering food online again. And this usually happens during Lenten season where we promise something to fast, right? But what is very important to point out that changes here is that everything was not stronger than willpower, but it was about our community working together. When sustainability became something shared, a conversation, a practice, a culture, it becomes possible. And the same is true for digital ecology, that digital sobriety is almost impossible alone, but it becomes realistic in community. And when we, in our communities, we begin to ask, do we really need this tool? Does this technology serve our mission? Does this platform respect dignity and consume more than it gives? That is already an action. And AI can genuinely help by supporting us in our monitoring, ecological planning, community organizing, and global ecological learning frameworks. Here, AI can help communities see patterns, share resources, coordinate efforts, and learn from one another across continents. To go to the last points, in a very real sense, AI can help build global ecological solidarity with its potential. But this is the most important line in the section for me, that AI must always remain a servant of integral ecology, never its master. Because the moment technology becomes the master, the logic changes. Then speed becomes more important than discernment, efficiency more important than dignity, optimization more important than meaning. Or to say it playfully, the danger is that one day we no longer ask what does the community need, but what does the algorithm recommend for us to rise. And at that point, we have not gained intelligence, we have lost freedom. Because integral action always protects three things: human dignity, communal responsibility, and the common good. And ethical AI governance is a moral requirement today to ask who benefits, to ask who decides, and who must be included as well. Because these are not engineering questions, they are social and spiritual questions. And this is why LSAP communities are so important, because they embody something the world urgently needs: a different way of imagining the future, not driven by market logic or technological power, but a future shaped by care, sufficiency, participation, and solidarity. So in this sense, we hope that our actors here become signs of hope, witnesses that another way of living is possible, because action is not the end of the process, it's the beginning of the new cycle. To act, to reflect again, to discern again, to convert again, and we act again more wisely, more humbly, more together. And this is not inefficiency, that is spiritual sustainability. Because in the end, integral ecology is not about saving the world quickly. It's about learning how to care for the world faithfully, patiently, communally, and with hope. And a digital age obsessed with speed, that may be the most radical action of all. To end our session for today, I'm sorry, I think I'm in overtime already. The path reminds us that before we optimize the world, we must first interpret it spiritually. Before we design technologies, we must first convert our desires. And before we act, we must first learn how to see with wonder, with honesty, discern with conscience, and act with hope. In the age of AI, integral ecology calls us for a deeply human conversion, where technology serves life, education to form wisdom, to become spaces of care for our common home. In the end, we are reminded that true transformation begins within. We optimize not machines, but our hearts. We design not only systems, but our desires. We act not only on the world, but from a vision of love. And in the age of AI, we form minds, shape hearts, and nurture communities that care for creation and one another. So let us go forward as contemplators who see, as discerners who choose wisely, and as actors who bring hope. Thank you very much for listening, and I bid you all a good day. Gracias.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, especially in a world that moves so quickly toward optimization and automation, as you say. You've really invited us to slow down, really to ask, not only can we do with these tools, but what are these tools doing to us? And at the same time, you've resisted fear. You've shown that technology itself is not a destiny. It can serve solidarity. It can support ecological awareness. It can assist discernment. We have a little bit of time, and I saw some questions in the chat. I saw someone make a comment about the push of large companies to incorporate AI into every part of society. And then I saw another attendee ask a question about the freedom we have in the face of tech giants who are incorporating AI without a conversation in ethics. So I think something that I'm hearing from my audience that I want to ask you, Ivan, is when communities feel pressure to keep up technologically, how can they discern to adopt a tool like AI and do so practically? And how can they decide when to abstain? We ask our participants to submit a reflection, for example, to discern their work when they first enroll on the platform. And I saw you had some discernment questions of your own in the presentation. But could you share a little bit more on what you think about that question and how you would respond to it?
Actually, I saw a comment as well that uh, even accessing this webinar today is using technology, and
Yeah.
it's true, right? Because especially during the pandemic, most of us are really pressured to keep up technologically, and in this rise of AI, we also are all pressured to learn how to use AI, integrate it in education to what we do, and I think to offer just a reflection here, to know when to keep up or not, uh, we ask ourselves as leaders or movers, now what will really serve our community and what are we missing out on? Because uh, we need to ask, if does this technology deepen our mission or distract from it, or does it foster participation or create dependency?
Mhm.
And here, I think that's where policy making and ethical AI governance comes. Because the most faithful response, of course, is adoption, because we expand access, inclusion, and ecological awareness. But sometimes there's some abstaining that we need to do so that we know how to limit ourselves as well, because it's we discern here by recognizing that not every technological possibility is a pastoral necessity,
Mhm.
that we need to know what can really help us in our growth, no, or if we will avail these tools, at least we know how to regulate them as well, so that we will not be our human growth will not be sacrificed as well.
Thank you for naming that. And I just want to say, I mean, hearing your response right now, this is clearly an area where many communities are still discerning. And perhaps we can hold together both the opportunities and the cautions rather than collapsing into either optimism or fear. So thank you once again, Ivan. And I saw that many people were asking for your presentation. Just as a reminder, this recording will be reposted in your Laudato Si Action Platform dashboard, so keep an eye out for it there next week. We'll send an email once it's ready. As we begin to close this first portion of our time together, I do want to return to where we started. Today was not simply about technology, and it was not simply about information, it was about formation. And that's exactly where we're moving into next. In just a few minutes, we'll begin the second part of today's gathering. This is a 45-minute interactive workshop where we will help you begin drafting and refining your 2026 Laudato Si plan. This will be practical, concrete, collaborative. And for those of you who haven't registered for the workshop portion, we're dropping the registration link in the chat now. We'd love to join you for us. We'll have like a 5-minute break after this webinar and you can join us. We'll give our interpreters a chance to relax a moment. As we get ready for that part of our webinar, we just want to emphasize, if you're able to stay with us, please, 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 let's take from this insight the ability to implement our Laudato Si plans. Thank you again to Alonso. Thank you to Ivan, to our interpreters and our behind-the-scenes team. Thank you for holding the threads that allow our global community like ours to meet. And thank you to each of you for the steady, faithful work you carry in your own communities. We look forward to continuing the journey with you, not only into 2026, but into the concrete commitments that begin to take shape today. In this Lenten season, may we keep walking humbly, patiently, and together. We'll see each other again soon in the interactive workshop after this 5-minute break. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.